Welcome to My Money Mindset podcast, where we explore how a healthy mindset is the foundation for financial success. Each week, we delve into mindset hacks and practical strategies to help you enhance your income, help you make more appropriate investments for yourself, and to improve your overall financial well-being. Join us on this journey to transform your financial future by transforming your mindset. Please note that the information provided on this podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute as personal, financial or health advice. It has been prepared without considering your individual objectives, financial situation or life needs. Before making any financial or health decisions, you should consult with a qualified professional or financial advisor to ensure the information aligns with your specific circumstances. So let's begin and enjoy this journey as each episode teaches us on how to improve our overall mindset that it overall improves our financial success. In this episode, I'd like to discuss knowing when you should be selling an investment property or keeping it and strategizing on your portfolios or property portfolios. Most often with investors, so that if you're a rent investor or owner-occupied investor, so a rent investor being you rent your property where you're living now, so you're leasing it, you're renting it, and you have an investment property that you're also renting that out and earning an income, as opposed to living in your own property and having an investment property. So knowing when to sell or keep an investment property is probably on the priority list of thinking with most investors. So as they gauge their capital value on the property, and they gauge, what's the return on my investment. They may do it quarterly, as in their BASs. They may do it half yearly, yearly, monthly, weekly. Most of the time, we often, really good investors will always keep a very tight analysis upon the capital growth and return on investment. And capital growth is quite a hard one to gauge simply at any given time. So I would always suggest probably look at capital gain every 6 to 12 months because markets do fluctuate and it's very hard to determine and read in that crystal ball what you sort of anticipate your property to be. You can get indicatives, as in even if it is a property next door that is just sold, there are also the other variables of how does that property compare to yours, if it's in the street, down the road, very close but still in another street. It's all these variables, right? So that's very hard to gauge. So returning on investment is probably something that you want to always keep an eye on. And the return is obviously all the expenses after you add up all your income. So your income obviously being the rent, any other income that you may derive from it, most of the time it's just rent, and then you factor in also if you've factored in any depreciation add backs, interest add backs and all that type of thing, but then you minus the liabilities as in the costs, and it could be repairs, it could be the interest and everything, and obviously you end up with a figure at the end of it per annum or quarterly or whenever you like to do it. Now, with that figure in mind, whether it's a positive income or a negative income, then you attribute those negative income obviously to negative gearing. If it's a positive, then you factor that into your overall income, and then you look at it from there, and you work out, okay, is this property worthwhile? So it gets to the point with most investors that their analytics sort of run short. Now, as an entrepreneur or an investor, most of the time there are grey areas in our thinking. And what I mean by that is that there aren't really any analytics or logic sums that we could sort of do to get that gut instinct upon do we sell or do we buy? Do we sell or do we keep the investment? And the reason is simply, yes, if you're very analytical in making, like when you make a decision, you're very analytical. So it's all about the dollar and it's not about forecasting. So some people could be very so analytical that they say, look, if it's not making me money, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't really want to care about the capital gain. If it just doesn't make money, I'm getting rid of it. And I'm going to cash in, take the money and put it into something I know is actually going to give me a better return, same return or if not better, right? Obviously for better. Otherwise you would, obviously got expenses with selling it. So that being said, that grey area, going back to as an entrepreneur and investor, quite often we're confronted, once we've done the analytics on a property, whether it's negative or positive geared, still what to do. So what you do is then after you know that it's earning an X amount of income or it's costing you an income, you start talking to obviously professionals. You may talk to your accountant, your broker, your, what's her name? Financial planner, or you could also look at real estate agents, getting their idea on what you think you could potentially get if you ever sold it, or if you wanted to increase the rent, or if you wanted to pour a bit more money into that investment to gain higher rent, whatever. There's so many tactics, and that's the what I'm sort of aiming at is the variables here. So, for instance, you go speak to your accountant. He's obviously going to base his opinion on your overall income per annum. You go to your broker, he's obviously going to have a look at what your potential borrowing capacity is, or what, if you did sell it, what you could actually replace it, or things revolving around what banks are doing at the moment. That's another conversation. You may go to your financial planner that obviously would be considering things into superannuation and how can we use super to, or your money, if you were to sell it, to put it into super, what the returns would be. So there's another third conversation. Then you speak to a real estate agent and they're like, well, and I would always say make sure you speak to at least 3 real estate or 4 well-known real estate agents that are guns in the area. And you say, well, what do you think if I do sell it? And then, what I've always noticed in the past, if you are considering selling an investment and they give you a bar sort of indicative price, they set their goal, and if we use $1 million as an example here, I would always maybe subtract a bit. So you'd subtract the marketing costs, agent fees, commissions, things like that, and then also make sure that you sort of subtract a little bit more off the top. So if you're anticipating selling for $1 million and the commission is roughly 12, 15,000, marketing 3, 4,000, that's roughly 20,000. Let's say they don't get $1 million, they only get 950, that sort of thing. You'd really want to base your numbers. I know it sounds really drastic, but I would consider maybe only collecting 900 in your figures if you're going to go through that, and making sure to see if that 900 is really what it is. Now, if you do end up selling and it's 1.1 or 1.2, then even better. You've really flown past that goal. But I would really make sure that that sale price is somewhat analysed and you've done your research upon if that's really going to be the case. If not, and you get a 900 after everything's been done and paid for, are you still going to be satisfied moving forward? Now, another grey area is, well, we don't know. We think we're going to get not as much as what we really want, or we bought it for X amount and it's not even worth that today. It's actually gone down in value. You've got to know when to cut your losses. And if you're considering selling because you've got alternatives as in investments, then I would really consider cutting your losses. But if you're just thinking and it's just in your mind that this property or this investment's not going up in value and it's really annoying you and it's bothering you and you're thinking about it and you're being over analytical, think about what you could be doing with the money, as in what would you replace it with? So, for instance, if you were to sell it today and cut your losses and make a loss on the property, no capital gain whatsoever, it's a negative, what would you do with that money? And before you actually do it, I think I did an episode not too long ago about what you'd actually do and what you would actually buy as an investment to replace this property that hasn't gone anywhere in value. So the strategy here is, because if you've been watching your property and would notice that interstate in Australia for like your properties that haven't gone up and then all of a sudden they bounce up, you've really got to make sure with property, it's no longer like a 5-year, 10-year, and then sell game. I think with properties these days, you've really got to wait even at least 20 years to sort of see some indicative gain or value increase. It sounds crazy, but looking at data, and been looking at data for the last 25, 30 odd years, it's actually seen that the properties, and I'm saying that you've got to be patient. But that being said, patience can also be what they call opportunity cost. And an opportunity cost is the cost of an opportunity missed. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to that lemon of a investment property, or the one that's not as worth as much as when you first bought it. And we'll use the $1 million price tag on it. So you bought it for $1 million. You're actually looking at it now, and it's only worth 800 if you will sell it today. And you've had it for 10 years. And you say, what should I do with this? And most of the time with my clients, I'd say, okay, right, do you need to sell it, or can we wait and take the focus off that? I mean, why are we looking at this property? Is it because it's actually not going up in value and you could be doing something else with your money? That's quite often the reason why we're looking at this property. And if that's the case, that is somewhat related to your opportunity cost. So what that means is you're saying, well, yes, I want to take out, I want to sell it. I'm only going to get 800. I'm going to pay the loan off for 700, and I've only got 100,000. But with that 100,000, I can actually put it into shares or Bitcoin, or put it into my owner occupied to save on a 6% interest that I'm paying on my owner occupied. That's your opportunity cost. So it means that whilst this, you've also got to factor in that if you're negative gearing this investment, and it's costing you money as in to keep, you're able to add that back. So you'd obviously look at your tax and everything. So speak to your accountant before looking into that. But what you've actually got to be able to analyse is that 100,000, going back to selling it for 800, paying off the loan as an example of 700, collecting 100,000, and that 100,000 at an interest rate of 6% is going to save you $6,000. Then that's your opportunity cost if you don't do it straight away, in rough terms, right? So, but it's a cost that's related to missing out on another investment. Now, going back to the other reason, so why would you want to sell it? And if you're bored and you're thinking, well, I'm just bored of looking at this thing, this lemon of a property, I've had it for 8 to 10 years and it hasn't gone anywhere, it frustrates me. It keeps me up at night. It gives me anxiety knowing that, other people are making money on other property. Then I could be doing the same. So what I would be looking at is, okay, before you go sell, or whilst you're preparing to sell, start looking at the other properties or other investments that you'd like to diversify your money into. So for instance, jumping ship, letting go of this lemon property and start doing your research into what you actually would be buying. And it doesn't have to be a replacement now for now type of thing. So it doesn't mean as soon as you sell, you've got to invest. Take your time. In the episode of investments, I always said, make sure you analyze everything before you make an investment, because an investment is putting $1 in today and hopefully making more than $1 in the future. So it's got to make sense. So do your research into what you think you will be purchasing with the money if you do sell this property. Now, if you decide, well, hang on, okay, Mark, so what you're saying is if I wait more, it should go up in value. Well, probably it's not always a given that it will go up in value. it could not, it may stay stagnant forever. You don't know. There is no crystal ball. And anyone that does tell you otherwise is probably just guessing. And I would not base my investment portfolio on guesses. Like I say, it's just pretty much, it's a gamble. Now, in some instances, you sort of got to take a gut instinct and you say, well, all right, do I really need the money? And are there any opportunities elsewhere that I could be doing anything with the money? Or is it better just to safe hold, keep collecting the rent on it, and maybe looking at other alternatives to increase my income? So that could be your career, your jobs, grow your business, whatever. But if it's something that's keeping you up, and going back to the anxiety bit, and it's really, I'd start, look, investments are a major part of your life, but they should not be keeping you up at night or giving you anxiety or blood pressure. Now, everyone says, well, that's impossible, Mark. But yes, I understand. And, we've all been there as investors or entrepreneurs when we're delving into the next step and, involved in losses, potential losses or gains or whatever we do, right? But that being said, there's a time when we've got to know when to sort of cut the cord when it comes to allowing that anxiety to be growing at a ridiculous rate in your mind and keeping you up at night. Because the one thing what we don't want investments to do is to affect our health in a negative way. How do we stop that? How do we stop? Well, that's another episode which I talk about anxiety that's related to investment properties. It's quite an interesting one because anxiety, whether or not it's for investment properties or whether or not it's for just everyday life, the magnitude of the anxiety and where it derives from can often be so many different places. And that episode is, it doesn't get involved, but it gets enough information there for you to sort of have an open mind and think about potentially what that anxiety or where it derives from you. And, obviously seeking professional help at all times if that anxiety starts to creep in and starts affecting your living conditions, your health or anything like that. I would always say it's nice to be able to speak to a coach, counsellor, anyone that can sort of help you with that, to help you sort of help move forward or suppress any form of anxiety or distraction in the mind. There's nothing worse than, having an investment. It was for a positive move, and all of a sudden, because the investment's gone negative, or it's causing you anxiety, that your personality or your livelihood is negatively affected. Of course, it is. Your finances are negatively affected, but it's not a health-related thing, right? So anxiety is health. Financial health and body or physical health are two different healths. Now, they're all sort of connected because us as humans always like to think, well, finances are probably at the higher end of the priority list. You got to make sure that your health is at the top of the priority list, and finance is somewhat, below that to whatever. Everyone have a different degree on how they place their hierarchy in needs, and I think that finance is below the health importance. So always make sure that your health is in shape, and to try and minimise or eradicate that anxiety. I hope that helped, guys.